Governor Kumar, was you?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, I got... Yeah. But they're, I just gave them some, so that they'll probably come late. I gotta, unfortunately, I can't stay. I gotta go to my closet kitchen clean up. Do you like the small pair of cartoons?
Yeah, that's fine.
They seem to have the best sound.
Yes, I know.
Oh, Krishna Chaitanya, they got misplaced again.
Oh, they're not there?
I hated that.
I meant to take him. I thought I could take him with me.
Oh, he took him to the program. Anyway, whatever it is. You gonna be here?
I'll be here.
Okay, good. I don't know if Marcy's gonna be here.
Yeah, I was in the middle of washing pots and then I have to clean the kitchen by myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of struggling.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
okay, we're good. Looks like we got my pillows.
I think those kids will make it to at least part of the class, but I told them about the kirtan at 8:15.
Oh, nice.
So the one Rajavasi kid, he was like, oh yeah, yeah. You know, so hopefully they'll come to that. Okay.
The demigods are here, Prabhupada said so. Pratyaksha Rakshadalam Sudharasing. We seem to have lost Leelasar, Rajendra Kumar.
I seen them last Sunday.
Huh?
They're back.
I know they're back. I've seen them, and I know I saw her limping. She has some problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she must have hurt her leg. Anyway, maybe they'll show up again someday. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. You're gonna have to sing. Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Vaishnava ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Are you ready, my son? Okay. You didn't lose that iPad, did you? You have it? Okay. Because I haven't seen you with it lately. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 18th day of July 2017 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 6 entitled Dhyana Yoga, on text number 40 at the bottom of page 292. I think it's much quieter in here with that new door. Less noise from the back. Okay, you got the page?
Yes.
All right. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Partanaiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschid Durgatim Tata Gacchati. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Partanaiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschid Durgatim Tata Gacchati. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Partanaiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschid Durgatim Tata Gacchati. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Partanaiveha Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate Nahi Kalyana Krit Kaschid Durgatim Tata Gacchati. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, said, Partha, O son of Pritha, na eva, never is it so. Iha, in this material world, na never, amutra, in the next life, vinashaha, destruction, tasya, his, vidyate, exists, na, never, he, certainly, kalyana krit, one who is engaged in auspicious activities, kaschid, anyone, durgatim, to degradation, tata, my friend, gacchati, goes. Translation, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Son of Pritha, a transcendentalist engaged in auspicious activities does not meet with destruction either in this world or in the spiritual world. One who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. Report. In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17, Sri Narada Muni instructs Vyasadeva as follows. Jagvasvadharmam chadanam bhajang hare bhajan hapakvo tapate tato yadi yatra kvava bhadrama mushikim kovarta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up all material prospects and takes complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no loss or degradation in any way. On the other hand, a non-devotee may fully engage in his occupational duties and yet not gain anything. For material prospects, there are many activities, both scriptural and customary. A transcendentalist is supposed to give up all material activities for the sake of spiritual advancement in life, Krishna consciousness. One may argue that by Krishna consciousness one may attain the highest perfection if it is completed, but if one does not attain such a perfectional stage, then he loses both materially and spiritually. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one has to suffer the reaction for not executing prescribed duties. Therefore, one who fails to discharge transcendental activities properly becomes subjected to these reactions. The Bhagavatam assures the unsuccessful transcendentalist that there need be no worries. Even though he may be subjected to the reaction for not perfectly executing prescribed duties, he is still not a loser, because auspicious Krishna consciousness is never forgotten, and one so engaged will continue to be so, even if he is low-born in the next life. On the other hand, one who simply follows strictly the prescribed duties need not necessarily attain auspicious results if he is lacking in Krishna consciousness. The purport may be understood as follows. Humanity may be divided into two sections, namely the regulated and the non-regulated. Those who are engaged simply in bestial sense gratifications without knowledge of their next life or spiritual salvation belong to the non-regulated section. And those who follow the principles of prescribed duties in the scriptures are classified amongst the regulated section. The non-regulated section, both civilized and non-civilized, educated and non-educated, strong and weak, are full of animal propensities. Their activities are never auspicious because while enjoying the animal propensities of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, they perpetually remain in material existence, which is always miserable. On the other hand, those who are regulated by scriptural injunctions and who thus rise gradually to Krishna consciousness certainly progress in life. Those who are following the path of auspiciousness can be divided into three sections, namely, 1. The followers of scriptural rules and regulations who are enjoying material prosperity. 2. Those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence. And 3. Those who are devotees in Krishna consciousness. Those who are following the rules and regulations of the scriptures for material happiness may be further divided into two classes, those who are fruitive workers and those who desire no fruit for sense gratification. Those who are after fruitive results for sense gratification may be elevated to a higher standard of life, even to the higher planets. But still, because they are not free from material existence, they are not following the truly auspicious path. The only auspicious activities are those which lead one to liberation. Any activity which is not aimed at ultimate self-realization or liberation from the material bodily concept of life is not at all auspicious. Activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity, and anyone who voluntarily accepts all bodily discomforts for the sake of making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness can be called a perfect transcendentalist under severe austerity. And because the eightfold yoga system is directed toward the ultimate realization of Krishna consciousness, such practice is also auspicious, and no one who is trying his best in this matter need fear degradation. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Krishna is again encouraging Arjuna. Arjuna had doubts about whether he could perform the severe principles of Ashtanga Yoga. Can you close that door almost to like 1 foot because it's distracting and not so noisy, but it's... Yeah, that's better. Thank you, Prabhu. So after Krishna had summarized the process of Ashtanga Yoga and also explained his great benefits, Arjuna doesn't think he can do it. And starting in text 33, he's saying that my mind is too unsteady, chanchalam himana Krishna, too powerful. Krishna encourages him, saying, yes, it's difficult, but it's possible by practice. And then in text 37, Arjuna again is very pessimistic. And he's thinking that, as explained in this purport, the idea that if one tries to succeed in yoga, which involves renunciation of material endeavors, but fails, then he didn't achieve anything materially, and he didn't achieve anything spiritually, so he's busted. He's a failure. Krishna immediately dispels that idea in this verse, and this is the special benediction, if you will, of advancement in genuine spiritual life, is that it's not lost, even with the body, because it's pertains to the soul, and the soul is not slain with the body. Everything related to the body is eventually destroyed with the body, whether it's name, fame, money, relationships, even memories. You have to start a new slate next time, and you carry over the results of your previous activities. You don't know why you're having such difficulty in so many things, but it's because of previous activities. So the key phrase here, one who does good, my friend, is never overcome by evil. And this effort in Ashtanga Yoga, when it's focused on Krishna, which Krishna makes it very clear in his summary that the ultimate goal is meditation on me and returning to my abode, then it's you can't lose. Whatever you can achieve in this lifetime is good for you, and you'll pick up in the next life. Now, Prabhupada would often quote this verse. This is from Narada Muni's instructions to Vyasadeva on writing of Bhagavatam. And the whole context of this verse that he quotes in the purport here, Chakpa Swadharmam, is that Vyasadeva himself had kind of watered the message down. That was why he was dissatisfied. In his writing of the Vedas, some of them deal simply with karma kanda, improving your material position. And then there are the Ayurvedas there. It's medicine. It's very good, but it's material. So he was dissatisfied, and in his instructions here, Narada Muni is first he chastises him a little bit, which is what the guru does sometimes to the disciple, and he says, "Do you think that the body and the mind are the proper objects of yoga, of improving the body and the mind?" That was his first instruction. So this verse, in this verse, Narada Muni is directly addressing the question at hand here. Chakva swadharmam chadanam bhujangare. One who gives up his duties is swadharma, normally refers to duties within varnashram. In other words, you're carefully following all the principles for your station in life. You're a Shudra, you're a Kshatriya, you're a Brahmin, whatever. But if someone just gives them up and bhajan, chadanam bhajan hare, for worshipping the lotus feet of Hari or Krishna. But his effort in doing that, his efforts are apakva. Now you remember the word shrapacha? Shrapacha means the dog cookers. So the word pacha or pakva means to cook. So it means that your bhajan is uncompleted. It's not well done. In other words, it's not mature. That's what apakva means. And because it's immature, you fall down. You fall away from the path in this lifetime. You tried some years, whatever, or even if you tried to the end of life, you weren't perfect and you have to come back. So he says, Yatra kava badram, where is there anything inauspicious in this effort? Because you carry it forward to the next life. On the other hand, ko varta apto abhajatam swadharmata. One who carefully follows his swadharma, but doesn't worship Hari, abhajatam, where is there any gain? It's a total loss. Everything is, if your entire aspirations and your efforts are on the material side, then you're just turning your wheels. It's completely illusory. You can't really make any progress. Even if you go to the heavenly planets, a great effort by austerity and sacrifice and worshipping the gods, and also, Krishna will say in the 9th chapter, eventually you come down again and you start over right here. You haven't done anything except waste time. So all of this is by way of encouraging Arjuna that you can follow this process and you won't be like a riven cloud. That was the idea, that you'd be lost. Now, Prabhupada, he has an analysis here about the different divisions of humanity, and the basic principle is that most people lead an uncivilized life, even though they may be externally look like they're civilized people. If you're just, the senses are unregulated, means that there's no reference to a higher source of knowledge, like the Vedas or the Manusmriti or anything, and it's just whatever happens to feel good, then that's the life of animals, and you're sure to suffer a lot with that kind of lifetime, that kind of lifestyle. So then, who's following the auspicious path? One follows the scriptural rules and regulations. This is in the last paragraph. Are enjoying material prosperity. So this is threefold: those who are trying to find ultimate liberation from material existence, and those who are devotees of Krishna. So you find the karmis, the impersonalists, and the devotees. At least the karmis, in one sense, they're following the rules and regulations, trying to advance materially, karma kanda. Ultimately, they're defeated, but also those who are trying to just get liberation are defeated, because there's no liberation without Krishna. What is that? Haring vinana sritim taranti. Without Hari, worship to Hari or Krishna, there's no passing beyond the strictures of birth and death. There's no liberation. And Rishabdev said so nicely, Priti nayavan maya vasudeve namuchate dehi yogena tavat. Without developing love for me, Vasudeva, without developing love for Krishna, there is no liberation from the bonds of a material body, which is what our bondage is all about. So, the only auspicious path, ultimately, is bhakti, because it includes all the goals of the other. You become completely happy, and you get liberated from the miseries of this material world, and return back to God. So that's why Prabhupada concludes, the only auspicious path of activities is those which lead one to liberation. And activity in Krishna consciousness is the only auspicious activity, because really there's no liberation without Krishna consciousness in the final analysis. So this is the basic principle here. And one who is performing auspicious activities, which are defined as Krishna consciousness, is never overcome by evil, even if he doesn't complete the course in this lifetime. So we're on the right path. We're doing the right thing. Any questions? Text 41. Prapya punya kutam lokan ushidva sasvati samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga bhrashto bijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people, or into a family of rich aristocracy. Purport: the unsuccessful yogis are divided into two classes. One has fallen after very little progress, and one has fallen after a long practice of yoga. The yogi who falls after a short period of practice goes to the higher planets, where pious living entities are allowed to enter. After prolonged life there, one is sent back again to this planet to take birth in the family of a righteous Brahman Vaishnav, or of an aristocratic merchants. The real purpose of yoga practice is to achieve the highest perfection of Krishna consciousness, as explained in the last verse of this chapter. But those who do not persevere to such an extent, and who fail because of material allurements, are allowed by the grace of the Lord to make full utilization of their material propensities. And after that, they are given opportunities to live prosperous lives in righteous or aristocratic families. Those who are born in such families may take advantage of the facilities and try to elevate themselves to full Krishna consciousness. So this verse is by way of describing the all auspiciousness of yoga, and it's understood as bhakti yoga. If you're unsuccessful, even if after a small amount of progress, one still gets elevated to the higher planets, and eventually takes birth in a family, a righteous Brahman Vaishnava family, which is the best, or aristocratic merchants. Now, these days, if you get born into a family of aristocrats or wealthy people, the chances, of course, if you have a devotional background, they could very well be rich and pious devotees. But it's better to be in a righteous Brahman Vaishnava family, which may be poor, but there's a greater emphasis on spiritual life, Krishna consciousness and self-control. So again, there's no loss. There's no loss in making some progress in devotional service. But you know, when it comes to straight Krishna consciousness, we kind of can count our lucky stars in the sense that I don't have any desire to be born in an aristocratic family. You know, I mean, that's a result of mixing in material desire to your bhakti. That's what it means to go, you know, to go to the heavenly planets. I mean, do you want to go to heavenly planets? No. So just the fact that we don't want to go there is a great blessing. It means that we don't have a material calculation in performing devotional service. So that you know is a rare thing. Most people have a material calculation because it comes with the territory of being born in the material world. But if we keep our focus on trying to perfection devotional service and, you know, living as simply as possible and not coveting material things, but that you know, steady determination is possible only by strong cultivation of Krishna consciousness, of bhakti, because that itself can give you such a pleasure that the material things are, you know, insignificant. You don't want anything like that. So that's what we're hoping for. And that's a greatly auspicious path. It means that in the next life, if we don't perfect it, we'll take birth, hopefully, in a devotee family. That's the most auspicious of all, as we'll see in the next verse. Ateva yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yad idrisham. Now here's the second class after long practice. Or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists who are surely great in wisdom. Certainly such a birth is rare in this world. The word is durlabhataram, means most rare. Purport: birth in a family of yogis or transcendentalists, those with great wisdom, is praised herein because the child born in such a family receives a spiritual impetus from the very beginning of his life. It is especially the case in the Acharya or Goswami families. Such families are very learned and devoted by tradition and training, and thus they become spiritual masters. In India there are many such Acharya families, but they have now degenerated due to insufficient education and training. By the grace of the Lord, there are still families that foster transcendentalists generation after generation. It is certainly very fortunate to take birth in such families. Fortunately, both our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and our humble self had the opportunity to take birth in such families by the grace of the Lord. And both of us were trained in devotional service of the Lord from the very beginning of our lives. Later on, we met by the order of the transcendental system. So this is the best birth one can take in this world, into a family of devotees. It's just a fact of life that what you're taught in childhood, from your earliest childhood, stays with you your whole life practically, and especially if that's devotion. And Prabhupada, his father was training him on the mridanga drum, and he went across the street and it was a temple, and he would stay sometimes for hours looking at the Radha Krishna deities there. The famous story of the Ratha Yatra, where he had his father arranged to have a little Ratha Yatra for him and everything. And that's invaluable. So we didn't have that advantage this lifetime. If we don't go back to guided, hopefully we'll get it in the next lifetime and be trained from very childhood. But the overall principle here is that it's all auspicious. In other words, this is the auspicious path. It's rare in this world, in this Kali Yuga world, that people are focused on the transcendental life from childhood. It's very rare, even in India now. But it's certainly more prominent there than anywhere else. So the overall point being made here is that there's no loss or diminution here. If you make some advancement in yoga practice, and it's generally devotional yoga, even if it's tinged with the Ashtanga, whatever, but it's really focusing on reconnecting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then that's money in the bank. You know, you won't lose that. That'll guide your life in the future. Okay, should we go on? Tatratam buddhi sangyogam labate pavadehikam yatate chatato bhuya Sangsiddhau Kudunandana. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Purport. King Bharat, who took his third birth in the family of a good Brahmin, is an example of good birth for the revival of previous transcendental consciousness. King Bharat was the emperor of the world, and since his time, this planet has been known among the demigods as Bharatavarsha. Formerly it was known as Ilavatavarsha. The emperor, at an early age, retired for spiritual perfection, but failed to achieve success. In his next life, he took birth in the family of a good Brahmin and was known as Jadabharata, because he always remained secluded and did not talk to anyone. And later on, he was discovered as the greatest transcendentalist by King Rahugana. From his life, it is understood that transcendental endeavors or the practice of yoga never go in vain. By the grace of the Lord, the transcendentalist gets repeated opportunities for complete perfection in Krishna consciousness. Well, okay, he skipped the birth as a deer. There was a birth between his life as a king and his life as Jadabharat. Which is part of the lesson there. You know, he had achieved so much. He had what is that? Sudishchaja Darasata Suradraja Badispasha Jaholyabhaiva Malabad Uttama Shloka Lalasa. Uttama Shloka Lalasa means he was so eager to know Krishna, who is glorified in the best of songs, that at a young age, Sudishchaja Darasata, very difficult to give up. Chaja is giving up. Dushchaja is difficult to give up. Sudushchaja is extremely difficult. His wife and his sons, wife and his children. Darasutan. Suradraja, Vridispasha. And his friends, which are, all of this touches the heart, is very deeply ingrained in the heart. But Jaholyavaiva Malavad, he gave it up as one gives up stool after passing it. You can see how determined he was. And went off to the forest as a young man and engaged in the meditation. And he had achieved the bhava stage. This was a meditation as described here with Krishna as the goal, and it's devotional yoga. But one of the things about developing one's devotion to Krishna is that one's heart becomes very soft and compassionate. So he failed the test. There was he's meditating and he hears this commotion in the little stream nearby, and there was a pregnant deer, a doe, who was running, trying to get away from a lion, or a tiger, I forget. And it got into the water and was swimming desperately, you know. Now apparently the lions and tigers, they don't go in the water, so he was safe there. But the the doe is scared out of his mind, out of her mind. So she gets to the other shore of the stream, and she's so terrified, and the effort and the whole experience was so great that she gave birth right there to the little fawn, and expired. So now here's this little fawn who's just helpless on the bank of the river. And Bharat had his meditation broke. He witnessed the whole thing. So what is he going to do? Of course, he tries to help this fawn. So he helped the fawn, and the fawn didn't know anyone as his mother except Bharat. So naturally, there's this great bond of affection and dependence. So what's he going to do? He's fed the fawn, and the fawn, So a great bond of affection developed with the fawn, and he couldn't stop thinking that fawn. The fawn would come and dibble on his ear. He's meditating, and So he lost his concentration, and the meditation, the focus that he had on Krishna was then diverted to the fawn. And when he died, he was thinking of the fawn. So he got born as a deer. Now, because he was so advanced, he could remember his previous life. So he didn't act like an ordinary deer. He would just try to hang out near the ashrams of the devotees, and so in this way he passed his time and eventually left that body, and he was born as Jadabhart in a Brahmin family. And in that birth, he feigned. Jada means stupid or dumb in the sense of not speaking or anything. So he feigned stupidity so he wouldn't have to associate with anybody. So they put him in charge of the cows, watching the cows. He was strong, but they thought he was weak mentally. So he spent his time in the fields taking care of the cows, just waiting to leave that. Meanwhile, in his mind, he's meditating on Krishna, chanting, whatever. So what happened was that there were a bunch of Kali worshippers that came along. Have you read this part of the Bhagavad? You know the story.
I've heard the story, I haven't read it.
Yeah. So they came along, and they're into human sacrifice. So they're on the prowl looking for a good candidate. So the candidate needs to be a perfect specimen. You can't have a finger missing or anything like that. So they saw Jadabhart. He was stout and strong, as Prabhu would say. He was a good specimen, so they captured him. And he just went along with them. It's not like he fought or ran away or anything like that. He was accepting Krishna's will, whatever it would be. So they took him to their temple of Kali, and there's this fierce form of Kali, with the wide eyes and the teeth and the garland of skulls and the whole thing, many hands with weapons. This is their temple. So they prepared Jadabhart for the sacrifice. They bathed him, gave him garlands and stuff, And he's just, Hare Krishna. So then they put Jadabhart before the Kali, and they're singing all kinds of mantras and reciting things, and they get ready to cut his head off. And Kali, who's a devotee of Krishna after all, was so incensed, so angry, that she came out of the murti and started chopping off the heads of all of her worshippers to save Jadabhart. And there was a bloody scene, and he was just sitting there, and so he was saved. So that was one adventure he had. And later on, I think it was he who burned to death in a forest fire somewhere. Went back to Godhead. So there's a lot of lessons there. The main lesson is that you never think you're secure until you're actually floating along in the river of prema. Because he had become in bhava, but he allowed his attention to get diverted to this doe or fawn, and he became deviated. So, but the point of this verse is that the best next birth, if you somewhat advanced in yoga or very advanced, is that you come into a birth be born into the family of transcendentalists, which is understood to be devotees, and Prabhupada explains in the purport that he had that opportunity. Okay. Okay, we'll finish this section. Text 43. Tatratam buddhi sangyogam.
I think we just did that.
I'm sorry?
We just did that.
We did that one? Oh, yes, you're right. Okay. All right, so we'll leave this one for the next time, for tomorrow. Text 44. And we'll just read a little bit of Krishna book. Let's see where we are here. Hare Krishna. Yeah. I'll let you know in a second. Okay, extinguishing the forest fire. Takes chapter 17. You see it? Yes. King Parikshit, after hearing of the chastisement of Kaliya, inquired from Shukadeva Goswami as to why Kaliya left his beautiful land and why Garuda was so antagonistic to him. Shukadeva Goswami informed the king that the island known as Nagalia was inhabited by serpents, and that Kaliya was one of the chief kept chief serpents there. Being accustomed to eating snakes, Garuda used to come to this island and kill many serpents at will. Some of them he actually ate, but some were unnecessarily killed. The reptile society became so disturbed that their leader, Vasuki, appealed to Lord Brahma for protection. Lord Brahma made an arrangement by which Garuda would not create a disturbance. On each half-moon day, the reptile community would offer a serpent to Garuda. The serpent was to be, kept underneath a tree as a sacrificial offering to Garuda. Garuda was satisfied with this offering, and therefore he did not disturb any other serpents. But gradually, Kaliya took advantage of this situation. He was unnecessarily puffed up by the volume of his accumulated poison, as well as by his material power, and he thought, why should Garuda be offered this sacrifice? He then ceased offering any sacrifice. Instead, he himself ate the offering intended for Garuda. When Garuda, the great devotee carrier of Vishnu, understood that Kaliya was eating the offered sacrifices, he became very angry and rushed to the island to kill the offensive serpent. Kaliya tried to fight Garuda and faced him with his many hoods and poisonous sharp teeth. Kaliya attempted to bite him, and Garuda, the son of Tarksha, in great anger and with great force, befitting the carrier of Lord Vishnu, struck the body of Kaliya with his effulgent golden wings. Kaliya, who was also known as Kadru Sutta, son of Kadru, immediately fled to the lake known as Kaliya Radha, which lay within the Yamuna river, and which Garuda could not approach. Kaliya took shelter within the water of the Yamuna for the following reason. Just as Garuda went to the island of the Kaliya snake, he also used to go to the Yamuna to catch fish to eat. There was, however, a great yogi known as Saubhari Muni, who used to meditate within the water there and who was sympathetic with the fish. He asked Garuda not to come there and disturb the fish. Although Garuda was not under anyone's order, being the carrier of Lord Vishnu, he did not disobey the order of the great yogi. Instead of staying and eating many fish, he carried off one big fish, who was their leader. Saubhari Muni was sorry that one of the leaders of the fish was taken away by Garuda, and thinking of their protection, he cursed Garuda with the following words, "Henceforward, from this day, if Garuda comes here to catch fish, then, I say this with all my strength, he will be immediately killed." This curse was known only to Kaliya. Kaliya was therefore confident that Garuda would not be able to come there, and so he thought it wise to take shelter of the lake within the Yamuna. But Kaliya's taking shelter of Saubhari Muni was not successful. He was driven away from the Yamuna by Krishna, the master of Garuda. It may be noted that Garuda is directly related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is so powerful that he is never subject to anyone's order or curse. Actually, the cursing of Garuda, who is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam to be of the stature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, was an offense on the part of Saubhari Muni. Although Garuda did not try to retaliate, the Muni was not saved from his offensive act against a great Vaishnava personality. Due to this offense, Saubhari fell down from his yogic position and afterwards became a householder, a sense enjoyer in the material world. The fall down of Saubhari Muni, who was supposed to be absorbed in spiritual bliss by meditation, is an instruction to the offender of Vaishnavas. When Krishna finally came out of the Kaliya's lake, he was seen by all his friends and relatives on the bank of the Yamuna. He appeared before them nicely decorated, smeared all over with chandan pulp, bedecked with valuable jewels and stones, and almost completely covered with gold. The inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cowherd boys and men, the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Maharaj Nanda, and all the cows and calves, saw Krishna coming from the Yamuna. And it was as though they had recovered their very life. When a person regains his life, naturally he becomes absorbed in pleasure and joyfulness. They each in turn pressed Krishna to their chests, and thus they felt a great relief. Mother Yashoda, Rohini, Maharaj Nanda, and the cowherd men became so happy that as they embraced Krishna, they thought they had achieved their ultimate goal of life. Balaram also embraced Krishna, but he was laughing because when everyone else had been so overwhelmed with anxiety, he had known what would happen to Krishna. All the trees on the bank of the Yamuna, along with all the cows, bulls, and calves, were full of pleasure because of Krishna's appearance there. The Brahmin inhabitants of Vrindavan immediately came with their wives to congratulate Krishna and his family members. And because Brahmins are considered to be the spiritual masters of society, they offered their blessings to Krishna and his family on account of Krishna's release. They also asked Maharaj Nanda to give them some charity on that occasion. Being so pleased by Krishna's return, Maharaj Nanda gave many cows and much gold in charity to the Brahmins. While Nanda Maharaj was thus engaged, Mother Yashoda simply embraced Krishna and made him sit on her lap while she shed tears continuously. Since it was almost night and all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, including the cows and calves, were very tired, they decided to take their rest on the riverbank. In the middle of the night, while they were taking rest, there was suddenly a great forest fire, and it quickly appeared that the fire would soon devour all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. As soon as they felt the warmth of the fire, they immediately took shelter of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he was playing just like their child. They began to say, "Our dear Krishna, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, our dear Balaram, reservoir of all strength, please try to save us from this all-devouring and devastating fire. We have no shelter other than you. This devastating fire will swallow us all." Thus they prayed to Krishna, saying that they could not take any shelter other than his lotus feet. Lord Krishna, being compassionate upon his own townspeople, immediately swallowed up the whole forest fire and saved them. This was not impossible for Krishna, because he is unlimited. He has unlimited power to do anything he desires. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 17th chapter of Krishna extinguishing the forest fire. Shall we go on? Chapter 18. Pralambasura killed. After extinguishing the devastating fire, Krishna, surrounded by his relatives, friends, cows, calves, and bulls, and glorified by his friends' singing, again entered Vrindavan, which is always full of cows. While Krishna and Balaram were enjoying life in Vrindavan in the midst of the cowherd boys and girls, the season gradually changed to summer. The summer season in India is not very much welcomed because of the excessive heat. But in Vrindavan, everyone was pleased because summer there appeared just like spring. This was possible only because Lord Krishna and Balaram, who are the controllers even of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, were residing there. In Vrindavan, there are many falls which are always pouring water, and the sound is so sweet that it covers the sound of the crickets. And because water flows all over, the forest always looks very green and beautiful. The inhabitants of Vrindavan were never disturbed by the scorching heat of the sun or the high summer temperatures. The lakes of Vrindavan are surrounded by green grasses, and various kinds of lotus flowers bloom there, such as the Kahlara, Kunja, and Utpala. And the air blowing in Vrindavan carries the aromatic pollen of those lotus flowers. When the particles of water from the waves of the Yamuna, the lakes and the waterfalls touched the bodies of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, they automatically felt a cooling effect. Therefore, they were practically undisturbed by the summer season. Vrindavan is such a nice place. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming. The cuckoos there sing nicely in 5 kinds of tunes. Krishna, the reservoir of pleasure, blowing his flute, accompanied by his elder brother Balaram and the other cowherd boys and the cows, entered the beautiful forest of Vrindavan to enjoy the atmosphere. They walked into the midst of the newly grown leaves of trees whose flowers resembled peacock feathers. They were garlanded by those flowers and decorated with saffron chalk. Sometimes they were dancing and singing, and sometimes wrestling with one another. While Krishna danced, some of the cowherd boys sang, and others played on flutes. Some bugled on buffalo horns or clapped their hands, praising Krishna. "Dear brother, you are dancing very nicely." Actually, all these boys were demigods descended from higher planets to assist Krishna in his pastimes. The demigods, garbed in the dress of the cowherd boys, were encouraging Krishna in his dancing, just as one artist encourages another with praise. Up to that time, neither Balaram nor Krishna had undergone the hair-cutting ceremony. Therefore, their hair was clustered like crow's feathers. They were always playing hide and seek with their boyfriends or jumping or fighting with them. Sometimes, while his friends were chanting and dancing, Krishna would praise them. "My dear friends, you are dancing and singing very nicely." The boys played at catching ball with fruits such as bale and amalaka. They played blind man's buff, challenging and touching one another. Sometimes they imitated the forest deer and various kinds of birds. They joked with one another by imitating croaking frogs, and they enjoyed swinging underneath the trees. Sometimes they would play among themselves like a king and his subjects. In this way, Balaram and Krishna, along with all their friends, played all kinds of sports and enjoyed the soothing atmosphere of Vrindavan, full of rivers, lakes, rivulets, fine trees, and excellent gardens filled with fruits and flowers. Once, while the boys were engaged in their transcendental pastimes, a great demon of the name Palambasura entered their company, desiring to kidnap both Balaram and Krishna. Although Krishna was playing, but externally he received him as a friend. "Oh, my dear friend," he said, "it is very good that you have come to take part in our